Why do you think that some of us have to suffer this way in order to learn lessons? Are there other people that don't go through chronic illness? I mean, obviously there are people who don't. And how is it that they...
But everybody suffers
in different
ways. And a lot of it, like you say, like just like being in a cafe with chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
Other people aren't going to know.
Yeah.
That's what you're going through.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing that you learn first, very early on in being a therapist, is that no matter how sorted somebody looks, they are crying on the inside about something.
Gosh.
Nobody isn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing. When I was getting ill, I'd often think, it's not fair.
That's what I
Why am I having to go through this? And I think that we all feel that way when we get chronically ill. And of course, you don't have to go through a chronic illness, and there are echoes of a chronic illness afterwards. That maybe that's harder than going through some other kind of challenge, but I doubt.
Yeah.
It's all relative, isn't it? I think I might have told you this before, I once had 2 clients back to back, one of whom was terminally ill and the other had noisy neighbours. And their pain was just as intense as each other. It's all relative. I'm sure that if one of them had both those things, one or the other would have paled into the background.
Gosh.
At times. But the reality was that they both were, that the struggle that they were each having was filling up both of their lives. I've since then had noisy neighbours.
And you understand.
And I do understand. No matter how objectively challenging something appears, the experience, when you're in pain, you're in pain. And that's all there is to it. There's no point in trying to rate it against other people's pain. And
so the long COVID stuff is obviously the more recent iteration of this, but I've looked back. I used to get sick all the time. I was working in newspapers and I would come down with tonsillitis, throat infections, sinus infections. I was ill all the time. And I used to think a lot, why do I get sick like this? Other people don't get sick like this. Why don't I have energy? Other people have energy. They can do this. And I used to watch The West Wing a lot. So I also couldn't sleep. I was doing this very intense job and I couldn't sleep at night because I'd be worrying about all the things we might have done wrong that day. And I might have, just everything that could have gone wrong. And I would watch The West Wing and I was so out of balance at this point. I would watch The West Wing and I'd go, look, they haven't slept in that episode and they're running the country. That would be actually what I would compare myself to. But I now look back and realise that when I burnt out the first time, I was in my 20s and I had to leave my big newspaper job. It was such a blessing because it resulted in me doing the kind of writing that I've done and that I'm so proud of. So what felt like such a failure at the time turned out to be a blessing.